Hello and welcome to another episode of Tales from a Professional Nerd. My name is Bryan Steele and I will be your professional nerd today and every other day that you watch my show or any of the other shows that I do, like TikTok or Twitter or Facebook or Instagram. I'm on the gram. Very rarely, but I am. Okay. Let's do a real quick week in Bryan, because it has been pretty good. I am almost done with the Shadowrun novel. Tourist Trapped is the name of the story. And when that one's done, I get to pretty much kick off a new one almost immediately thereafter. So that'll be fun. Spycraft is moving along. We're starting to really kind of dig into some of the meat of the story of the new Spycraft, so that's pretty cool. Two big things. We started another wave of Warzone playtesting just this last week, and some of it has to do with a couple of things that may have been problematic in the first run, or maybe something that we just kind of it's an itch that we're like, all right, is it something that needs scratching, or is this a super tiny unexpected corner case that we shouldn't have to worry about, or that is an easy band-aid fix, that sort of thing. Also, I got a whole new round of Warzone units all statted out, ready for playtesting, so that's cool. A couple of which are some of my favorites in the non-big scale style skirmish game, so that's I'm really eager to see some of those guys at the table. And on a completely different note, the aforementioned kind of high sci-fi game that is super hush hush. I turned in my engine on my rule set, so it is now in the hands of the client. They are looking it over to make sure that I hit all the buttons and all of the ticked all the boxes. I'm really proud of it. I think that it's going to be, if it ends up being, as is, or only changed a little bit, I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And we'll see. We'll see. Hopefully I'll be able to start talking about it here in a couple months when the client is a little further along. But no matter what, it always feels really good to finish a product, to finish a project. And I can't even say finish a product, because if all goes well, I'm hoping that the client will continue to use me to flesh out more of the game, to make more, because basically what I was hired to do initially was just to make the core system. This is how the game works. This is how you build an army. This is how the models shoot each other, or stab each other, or eat each other's faces, or whatever. And I would love, in order to do that, you have to do a little bit of designing of units, otherwise, because you can't, it's really hard to design in a vacuum, so you kind of have to have models, or at least the stat lines for models and things done, so you can test how your system works when you're designing a game system. And so I had to design some of the stuff for the game just to be able to make sure that my system worked. And it was a lot of fun, and I kind of hope that maybe, if all goes well, I get to make more stuff for it, and that would be good. Paychecks are nice, but it's also kind of cool to be able to, if I created this engine, if I created this, I want to be able to run with it. I want to be able to do more with it if I can. So we'll see. It's fingers crossed. We'll see what the client says, and hopefully it's good news. That's all I can hope for. Got to play some D&D last week. I got to play my dancing kitty cat bard. Why don't you say bard? My dancing kitty cat monk. It's because there's a dance involved. The plot is starting to move a little further along. There is still, one of the player characters is still a problem. He's still a nuisance. And we're hoping that maybe that will iron itself out as the game continues, or what's going to end up happening is that that particular player character is going to get into a hard situation, and nobody's going to come help him. And he's gonna be like, "What happened?" Be like, "Well, it's because you're a jerk to everyone. So guess what? We're not going to put our necks out on the line for somebody who obviously hates everything all the time and always has something to say about it." I'm gonna take a quick drink real quick. So I'm in a really good mood, and I'm glad I'm in a good mood, because when we get into today's topic, I'm probably going to say some things that people are going to go, "Oh, Bryan," and some other things that people are going to be like, "Oh, Bryan," So there's going to be some Bryans and some Bryans. But yeah, no, it's been a good week. I got D&D this weekend as well. Hopefully we'll get a little further in that story. Yeah, aside from that, it's just, again, a lot of work, doing a lot of work stuff. Everybody seems to be healthy and happy. The kids are doing the at-home digital schooling thing. God, I hate this virus, and I want life to go back to normal. Because not just because the kids are always underfoot, and it does kind of impede our productivity as adults, but it is also they're not getting as good of an education, honestly. A lot of what they're getting is videos and here, read this thing and fill out a form. They're not getting as good as in-person education in a school system. I know there's a lot of people out there like, homeschooling is the way to go, but even in homeschooling, you normally have a teacher, your parent or whatever is teaching you along with the program. And while we are trying to help our kids as much as possible, it's an uphill battle. The school systems, they just don't. It's not lined up that way. I had a mustache hair in my mouth. Gross. All right, so enough of that downer stuff. Let's see, what else is there? Playing a lot of Fallout, a lot of Sea of Thieves. Before I go to bed, kind of let my brain, wind down. Oh, yeah, I played my first game of the new Necromunda miniatures game. Because I've now been playing the video game, but the miniatures game that's been, I say new because it's new to us, but it's been out for the last couple of years. I don't know if you guys remember or not, but last year, one of you wonderful fans got my shipping address off of the description of the video and sent me a gifty because I had said that I think the Palanite Enforcers are really cool models, and that if I were to play Necromunda, I would love to play the judges. And so somebody last year sent me the Palanites and their dice and their cards and that kind of stuff. Well, I finally got around to playing. I got my squad put together. I refuse to call them a gang. My squad put together and my models associate together. I did lose my first game. We're not playing the campaigns yet. We're just kind of practicing to get the rules down. I played against my buddy's Orlok gang. I had a really strong start. Knocked out one guy and gave another guy a concussion in the first shot of the game. It started out really solid, but as things progressed, my dice started to go really cold, and I was rolling a lot of ones, a lot of misses, which when you're 6 guys versus 8, you can't afford to miss that much, and towards the end of the game it showed. But all things considered, we learned a lot. I learned a lot of how the new system works. I might make a couple adjustments when we start up the actual campaign. I might make some adjustments to my gang, my squad. But for the most part, I'm pretty happy with what I've got, and then I just gotta hope that I make enough credits between games to buy some more dudes, buy some equipment for my guys, because it's really apparent that my guys start off really on kind of the high foot, they've got all this really good gear that they start with, but I am way outnumbered when I play. And so we'll see. But that game went so well that I got completely nostalgic for old Necromunda stuff, and I went down this rabbit hole about new Necromunda stuff. And it occurred to me that I would love to be able to write like a White Dwarf article, or submit unofficial gang rules for something cool for Necromunda. Bring back some of the old stuff that's currently not there, or envision some new stuff that should be there on an official Games Workshop level. But the response I got from Games Workshop was, watch our website, see if there are jobs available. Well, obviously they're not going to ever post, we want a Necromunda guy. They're going to post something bigger, and then that person's going to end up filling in or whatever. But it's it is what it is. I've got a bunch of ideas rattling around my head. I probably should be focused on, when it comes to design and development, I should probably be focused on stuff that's paying me instead of this formless void Necromunda thing in the back of my head. But I digress. The other thing that happened this weekend, or earlier this week, one of my oldest friends, a friend of mine from way back in high school days, he and I were chit-chatting on Facebook, and he gave me his art portfolio, and I'm going to try and maybe see if we can't get him to maybe help with my next DM's Guild supplement. Because the one that we're currently working on, the class path one, that will hopefully be in the DM's Guild by December, if all goes well and everything gets put together properly and we get all the correct permissions and all the layout and everything goes right. I'm excited because again, money's nice, but it'll be cool to have people see these and get some of the responses back aside from just playtesters. But the next supplement after the one that's coming out hopefully in December are a bunch of monsters. A bunch of unique monsters that we haven't seen before. And so I asked my friend, my artist buddy, hey, I've seen some of your art, I've looked through your portfolio, and you're really good at making people. How are you at doing kind of unique monsters? And he is very confident that his unique monsters are going to come together for me. He even highlighted a few of them and was like, these are going to be great, they're going to have no trouble whatsoever. These over here might be a little problematic. This one's going to be a griefer. So I'm trying to give it as much time as possible, because not only I'd like to see him create more, I want him to be more creative in a day-to-day life. I always want to support creatives, and if they're friends of mine, it's even it's a win-win. I'm helping out a friend, I'm helping out myself and my business, but also I'm helping a creative make another foothold, hopefully, in the industry. Maybe through my stuff, maybe he'll get another gig, move on from there. So yeah, that's where that is. Because if all goes well, he's supposed to put together a few test pieces this weekend. If all goes well, when I'm done with the current novel, because I'm still waiting on some of the kind of highlight points for the next one, I might be able to maybe smash out some of the word count for those monsters and maybe just move straight from one into the next when it comes to layout and stuff. So we'll see. I'm excited. I mean, it's been a good week. Speaking of DM's Guild and the first supplement, the class path supplement, or subclasses apparently is what they're calling them. There was something we're going to get now on the topic at hand. I'm sure you guys clicked on it and said, Bryan, start talking about Tasha. A couple, it's probably been about 2 months ago, maybe, give or take 3 months ago, Wizards of the Coast got kind of, I don't want to say really kind of put under fire, but they were definitely scrutinized, persecuted. They were definitely scrutinized because a lot of the language that they use to describe some of the races in D&D, that orcs are kind of slack-jawed, dark-skinned, savages, that they're, stupid but athletic, and it basically really highlights them in a very poor fashion, as if they were humans. It dehumanizes the humanization of them, the humanoidization, and then combine that with things like the Drow, which is, again, I understand that there are a lot of people out there that look at that and go, oh yeah, the elves, the black elves are the bad elves, and that's why. It's, I can't say for certain the people who created those, if that's what they were thinking, if they were trying to have that mentality. But at the end of the day, currently, our political climate and a lot of our gamers, a lot of the current generation of gamers, they are seeing that as problematic. They're seeing that as, that is a very bigoted view. It's a very racist view, and it hurts. It hurts the sensibilities of someone who is trying to think from that perspective. And I will never say that someone should not have their feelings. Yeah, I couldn't say that. I there have been times where I've said your feelings are dumb. But in an instance like this, where they're basically talking about an opinion, they're talking about how their opinion makes them feel. I understand how the backlash hit Wizards of the Coast, and their initial response was, "We didn't realize this. We're very sorry. We will change it in the future. And in all of our old publications, we will put a little note on there that says, hey, a lot of the views and classifications in this book do not reflect our socio-political views, so forth and so on." And I get that, and I think that's it's a nice step in the right direction, because again, this is going to sound really simple. If it bothers you that they had to put that on there, and it just bugs you that D&D is, because again, the big thing right now is there's a bunch of people out there that are flipping out because someone at WotC, or a team of people at WotC, decided that they were going to eliminate that kind of language, and change things up in things like Ravenloft, where there is a society of people that are quite obviously a cookie cutter stereotype for the Romani people, and it's not a positive stereotype. It is definitely a negative stereotype. It is where, for many years, I had no idea that the term gypsy is a slur. To be gypped out of something is in reference to a gypsy. It is a reference to someone who is, the stereotype, because the slur anyway, is in reference to a nomadic, thieving, untrustworthy, dishonorable, family over morals over law, that sort of thing. And I had no idea. I grew up thinking that gypsy was just a term. It was just it was just a description, not realizing that it was a slur for the Romani people. And from here on out, I do my best not to use the term gypsy if I can. But 40 some odd years, it is hard for me sometimes to remember what I'm saying when I'm saying it. But overall, this is what WotC was doing, is they basically were seeing some of these things and going, oh man, I didn't realize that there were people that were upset by this. And rather than looking at them and saying, we didn't mean it, don't be upset, they said, hey, we understand you're upset, and in future publications we will change it. We'll put this note on here. We will change how this goes. That was a couple months ago. And then a couple of weeks ago, they announced a new book, a new official D&D book coming out, called the Tasha's Cauldron. What is it? Tasha's Cauldron of absolutely everything, or Tasha's Cauldron of Infinite Everythings. Let me get the exact name, but yeah, it basically they figured out that it was going to be a good idea for them to okay, it's taking forever to pull this up. I'm not okay. It's Tasha's Cauldron of something. Tasha's Cauldron of absolutely everything, or everything twice. And so what they did is they put it is effectively, this book is a book full, a hardcover book, a published book, full of things that used to be optional rules, and a bunch of new game stuff that you can play with. And one of the things that is focused on, we're going to spend a lot of time on that at the end, which is where most of our conversation will be, is basically new ways to handle player character, race, and background, or upbringing and lineage, as they're using the terms now. And we're going to get into that a little bit later, but basically the impetus behind creating this is exactly what had happened before, is rather than saying that all half-orcs are brutish, and that saying that, all, dwarves can handle their drink, or whatever, is they're going to create an alternate set of rules that allow you to create pretty much whatever kind of, species descriptor you want for your guys without putting on a bunch of negative overtones. One of the other things that they talked about is making things intrinsically evil, or by that rationale intrinsically good. Is it makes things easy to go, oh well, that's a bad species. Where again, I'm sure you've probably had people at your table that have been, someone will say something about, oh well, kill that goblin, they're all evil, and someone was like, racist against goblins. That's kind of where this is coming from. Is, yeah, that's a joke that they're talking about, but it is a joke that is rooted in truth. Whether or not it's malicious ignorance, or just one of those, hey, in my world, goblins have been stabbing and killing and eating babies for 1,000 years, so my character's got kind of a bad rap on them. It still doesn't mean that whether or not your character thinks that his bigotry and his racism is founded, it doesn't change the fact of what it is. It still is. But again, I'm not trying to look at somebody and be like, if your character hates hobgoblins, you're elven Nazi. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that there are there is a similar shade to how things are treated in a fantasy world if you allow things to be just monolithic examples, where it's just everything is like this all of the time and nothing changes. I've mentioned before that in my worlds, generally speaking, dragons, they are color-coded in how that they are kind of meant to go, but it doesn't necessarily mean that's the case. The personalities can alter, alignments can change. You can get as many evil metallic dragons as you do potentially beneficial and good guy chromatic dragons. Just depends on how their lives work out. Which brings me to the t-shirt of the week, brought to you by my t-shirt sponsor, Armor Class 10 Apparel. This is the Free Hugs. I love this little guy. I actually bought a small version of this t-shirt for my stepdaughter last year. I love this. He's a sad little illithid, where he is offering free hugs because obviously he wants to eat your brain. And this shirt embodies kind of what we're talking about, is that illithids, mind flayers, the whole family of them, there's a bunch of different kinds. Collectively, they have always been viewed as these like evil, just evil to the core. They're sadists. They eat living brains out of people's heads. This this sort of, there have been entire races of people that have been wiped out by the Illithids, and in an extreme view of this new mentality, this new alignment D&D monolithic thing, is that there are a bunch of people out there, there are players out there that say you shouldn't say that all Illithids are evil. You shouldn't say that as a species, no matter what they've done, and no matter what that they do biologically or anything like that, that they are 100% evil, and that there should be a chance for the redeemable soul or whatever, or just a general good guy, the Driz Duorden of the Illithid race. I'll get into it more, but I do, a little bit is me being old-fashioned, and a little bit of it is me having played D&D for 35 years. There are some things that I just kind of wrinkle my brow at and go, man, we sometimes get mad for no reason. We as a generation, we as a people, that sometimes humans get upset for things that, if you really stopped and thought about it and took a breather and go, you know what, it's a minor thing. There's worse things in the world to get worried about, or to get upset about. That's kind of where that comes from. But I do love this shirt. I love the idea of a Illithid trying to give people free hugs and then eating their brains. But I wanted to talk about Tasha's Cauldron for multiple reasons. There's a bunch of stuff in it, not just this new lineage player character race background thing. There's also a bunch of other stuff in it. So I jotted down what we know so far, and I just kind of want to give my opinion on it, because this is the first time that WotC has put together one of their expensive hardcover books, and a good, I don't know about 2/3, but at least a good third of it, third to a half, are reprints, are things that existed in other books and existed on D&D Beyond and in the Unearthed Arcana, that were unofficial before, or official if you're in that world, and that now are being basically put forward as this is, this is legit, this is D&D, this is the way to go. Get used to it. So let's take a look. Also, one of the reasons why it became very Tasha's book became very, oh no, for me, is because my first DM's Guild product, the one that's supposed to be out in December, is all subclasses. And my first thought was, oh god, it's going to be just the happenstance. Someone is going to have published at least one or two of my subclasses, and I'm going to have to go in and change things and make new ones and order new art, and yeah. Luckily, that was not the case. But what we do have, we've got some really good ones. We got that we already know about, some very cool ones. There's a few of them that are reprints that were in other books, but if you didn't have any reason to buy, the Guide to Ravnica or the Guide to Theros or anything like that, then you have no access to them. I never bought the Eberron book, but having the full stats for the Artificer is nice to have in a regular D&D book as well. So that way, if someone comes to your table and says, hey, I want to play an Artificer, do you guys have them in your game? They don't have to assume that you're playing Eberron or ask something along those lines, or like, I want to be special. These are rules that are now kind of universally found. So I mentioned the Artificer. So the Eberron Artificer, his full rules, plus a couple of new kind of stats for some spells and things like that for him, and some things that they can do. I think one of the new science paths is like the Armorer or something. But that's all in Tasha's book. Some of the other subclasses are pretty cool. That I dig those. Other reprint is the Order, the Clerical Domain of Order. Basically the opposite of the Chaos Domain. Very cool. I believe that was that may have been a Ravenloft order. I don't know. I don't remember where that came from. From Ravnica, there's the Circle of Spores Druid. Now, this one I actually had to look up. I bought the Ravnica book. I had to go look it up and go, oh, okay. So, in Magic the Gathering, in Ravnica, there are multiple species that are fungus, that are actual just mushroom people. And so, a Circle of Spores Druid is a druid that basically kind of ties into their lifestyle, their life cycle, their magical energy, that kind of thing. And the reason why I had to really look that up and make sure that was the case is because in my supplement, my subclass for Druid is called the Circle Below, and it's all about fungus and slimes and creepy crawlies and all the stuff that's in the ground and in the dirt. And my first thought was, oh man, this is going to end up basically making me redo the Circle Below Druid, which would super suck because the concept art for that one is one of my favorite art pieces so far. Luckily, not the case. The College of Eloquence for bards. This one, if you follow my friend Satine Phoenix on any of her social platforms, she has mentioned the College of Eloquence before. It is a reprint from, I believe, from Eberron that is basically a bard that doesn't sing, that doesn't dance, that doesn't play an instrument, but a bard that is all about public speaking, very good at the debate, very good at oratory, and it's awesome. I think it's a really cool college, and I'm glad that it is getting that kind of permanent seat in all of D&Dism. The Oath of Glory Paladin. I don't know how to feel about this. This comes from the Theros book, and I don't have the Theros book, so I can't. I can't say whether or not it's one that I would stand behind, but it sounds basically like a war-hungry paladin. A paladin that is just all about the duel and the killing large monsters all by myself, and paladins are already kind of problematic with how they smite and how they still have healing spells, and they're basically fighters that get some cheatiness in my opinion. And now you stack on top of that, you get a guy who is, his oath to service is about fighting. He is going to be a monster. The Blade Singing Wizard. I don't know if that came out of anything else, but I do know back in 3.5 there used to be a prestige class that was a fighter wizard combo called the Blade Singer. That was awesome. It was a fantastic class. Basically, it was a guy who could incorporate rhythm and motion and magic in a fighting style, and it was very, very cool. So I dig that there. And then they made a note. I don't know all of them. I know like the Blood Hunter is, and I think that's it. Just the Blood Hunter, maybe. I don't know. All of the Unearthed Arcana classes that are currently fully tested and out for people's consumption are going to be in this book as legitimate introductions. So that should be pretty cool. Some of those I don't necessarily care for. I know, I sneered a little when I said the Blood Hunter. That thing was created as a gimmick for a PR stunt, and it has turned into a very popular creation. So that's annoying, but it is what it is. The Sorcerer of the Psionic Mind. So Jeremy Crawford, one of the heads of D&D, has said on multiple occasions that he is not creating a psionicist class. It's been since like 3rd edition. He's not making a psionicist class. Instead, he's making other subclasses that function kind of like psionics, but with a different feel. And so the Sorcerer of the Psionic Mind basically taps they use sorcery to tap into their psychic ability and the psionic abilities kind of emanate as per spells. Which again, super rad. And that'll be cool. But probably my favorite of the new subclasses that Tasha is supposed to have is the Genie Patron Warlock. I love the idea of a warlock who got his spells by making a deal with a Jinn or a Dao or an Ifrit or a Marid. I love it. I love the idea. And even further, one of the things that I always dug, I loved the section of Forgotten Realms that was Al-Qadim. Yeah, again, it was very racially charged because it was that sort of Shahrazad's Tales feel, or 1,000 Arabian Nights, that kind of thing. But I loved... God, I don't even remember what the name of that class was, but there was a class that was specifically for Al-Qadim that was basically I am an elemental worshiper of genies. I tap into genie magic. I do genie type things. I have, the sort of magic energy of genies at my will. And so this warlock, this Genie Patron Warlock, I am so psyched to see what these rules are. Because, again, I loved Al-Qadim, I loved that aspect of it, and I have always been a big fan of genies in general. Whether it is Disney's Aladdin, which is my favorite Disney movie, I might add, down to the Jinn from Wishmaster 1, 2, 3, 4, and 7, however many those are. I've always loved the concept of this extraplanar being granting wishes, granting powers, because it's part of their essence, how they can get things done. I actually even wrote the beginnings of a role-playing game setting / engine, this is years and years ago, that basically everybody in the game were, you are a council, basically a group of genies that all share the same sort of extra-dimensional space, and it is your job to fulfill wishes. You got this like ultimate reality bending powers. You've got rules you have to follow, just like in the Disney movie. But and you cannot use your powers by other genies, can't ask you to do things. But you've got this like these serious significant powers. The only way you can use them is that if someone else tells you to do it. Someone else asks you on their behalf to use these powers. And obviously, for the most part, they're going to be selfish about it. They're going to try and get their wishes. They're going to get their stuff. But like, if you were in a situation where you wanted to try and steer a conversation or change how things are about ready to go down, you do it, but you can't influence your person, whoever rubbed your lamp or whatever. You can't tell them, hey, ask me to do this. You've got to try and get them to want to. I was like, that would be a really cool game. And then it fell apart when I realized that it's a really cool solo game, because with multiple people, you're never going to be able to keep everybody in check, and you are definitely never going to be able to maintain some semblance of sanity when they start getting their people to do things for them or ask for things. But I digress. Tasha's book is going to have the Warlock Genie in it, and I'm super psyched. I hope that it is. I would love it to be basically someone who, made their wish with said genie, and now they're bound together forever as patron and warlock. But there's always that that sort of hanger on of, if this all goes away, all of my powers leave. That kind of thing. It'd be cool. I'm excited. I want to see how they put it together. That's pretty much all the subclass stuff. There are, let's see, there is a bunch of things. There's new spells, a ton of new spells. I'm assuming most of them are going to start with Tasha's blah 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 blah. Tasha's blah 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 blah. As that it is her cauldron. A bunch of new feats, which are definitely needed. I think one of the if there's anything in 5e that is lacking, is that there are a lot of feats, but a lot of them do the same thing, just with a different skill or a different weapon or something like that. There needs to be more original feats that do, yeah, maybe it gives you a +1 to Constitution or everything, but also does something kind of interesting and cool. Not just gives you +1 to Intelligence and you now are proficient in 2 skills. That's boring. More stuff, you know. Let's see, what else? There's going to be a bunch of new magic items. They talk about how not all of these magic items are going to be the equivalent of a +1 longsword or a +2 battle axe or anything like that. You're going to get a lot more, not necessarily unique, but definitely their powers are not the standard, this sword catches on fire, it does fire damage. Not that kind of stuff. You're going to see more more unique feels, more unique stuff out in the out in the magic item scope, and there's going to be a bunch of it here in Tasha's book. I am going to guess that a lot of it is probably going to be caster related, probably a bunch of new wands and staves, that kind of thing. But you never know. Yeah, they're turning this book into a catch-all. Who knows? One of the things that they are doing for magic items, and I've done this before in some of my games, because I think it's just a neat concept, is having magic items that are actually tattoos. Basically, you tattoo something on a person, or a bunch of runes, or a magical sigil, or anything like that. It's not new. It's been done before, but it allows you to basically have a magical effect through this tattoo on your person X number of times a day or whatnot. So yeah, I think that it'll be neat to see some official rules on magic tattooing, whether or not they are just going to be magic items that basically, when you attune them, they're on you, or you have to get them on you and then you attune the magic into them. Who knows? But whatever it is, it's going to be cool. One of the other things that they're doing is they're including magic environments. So like Rivers of Souls, Haunted Grove. This is a sacrificial altar on the side of the mountain. The river runs red with blood. It's a little over the top, some of these things, and they're definitely not going to be involved in every single one of your games or game engines, or your settings. You're not going to see all of these here, but it's nice to have those options. Or examples, if you've got your own homebrew world, it's nice to see fair examples that, or at least the publishers believe are fair, in order to add something similar to your own game without you doing it and then suddenly be like, oh man, I've killed the whole party. Like that sort of thing. Or, oh man, they killed that guy in 2 hits. So those are going to be pretty cool. And then we get to the last big chunk of Tasha's book. The last ingredient in Tasha's Cauldron is inclusivity. I do not think that inclusivity is a bad thing by any stretch of the imagination. If you want characters that have crutches or a wheelchair, have a character with a crutch or a wheelchair. Explain why magic didn't heal his legs. Explain why this happens. Gives you cool character background. Go with it. Role play. That's what it's all about. If you want in your world orcs to be just as smart and awesome as humans, and elves and dwarves, and everybody gets along just fine, when it comes to their cultural mixing, then bam, awesome. You make your world homogenous as much as possible, and you let the role playing and everything bring out the differences in the species. That, if you want that, awesome. Tasha's book is going to have alternate rules for character creation that allow a character to avoid any kind of stereotyping whatsoever. You don't have to be a rogue. You can take some of the background of this and some of the background of that and have it come together being very roguey in the end, but that way you're not actually a thief and you're not supporting the stereotype of all halflings are thieves or whatever. You could have a gnome that you've decided that it is rude. It is a racial stereotype that all gnomes are tiny and weak, despite the fact that they are in fact small. But I'm going to go ahead and make sure that my gnome has a 20 strength to start things off. So be it. This is where my views do differ from a lot of the current game climate. If your game wants to use these rules, nobody has any negatives, everybody has whatever positives they want. If that's what they want to do, then that's up to them. It's their game. If they're having fun, it's not bothering me. Now, if they try and do that at my game, I'm probably going to put a kibosh on it. I'm probably going to stop them because you guys know me. I'm super against min-maxing. I'm super against, characters that are all bonus, no flaw. And that's really what this system sounds like. It sounds like, well, I can take all of this, I want my guy to be really good at this, and I want to be a half-orc, and I want to be strong and fast. You can just add all these things together, and as long as it falls under the umbrella of this new pick a lineage style thing, that you could totally be a half-arc bard of eloquence and be amazing at it right out of the gate because you decided to build your character with all of the things that are going to help that stuff happen. You don't have to level anymore. You just basically fill out the right form and go, hey, look, I've got everything I need. And I'm amazing. So this is where my personal Scrooging comes out. I really do, especially as a designer, it's crazy. I really dislike homebrew things that have not been tested, or a player who is doing everything in their power to be the best player at the table. I want to do everything. I want to be good at everything. I want to do this, that, and the other. This character creation process feels like this altered character creation process feels like getting rid of all of the negatives and adding in only positives and making things only good for you and there is no bad. For you and your games, this is where people might go, Bryan, for you and your games, if you like that, if that's the way you want to play, if you want your characters to be all min-maxed out and have no negatives, and so every single character breaks the stereotypical mold because you're allowed to, then do it. You play your game, you enjoy your game, you have fun, and don't tell other people not to have fun. That being said, if someone came to one of my games and was like, hey, can I use Tasha's alternate lineage and stuff to make a character because I want to play a half-orc, but I don't want to feel bad that he is, not the smartest tool in the shed and he relies on his muscles, I'm probably going to look at that person and say, let's see how the dice fall. But no, you can't just change how you want this to go, because in my D&D anyway, it's just kind of how it is. Now, if somebody came to me and was like, hey, I played in your D&D game at GaryCon, and you've got your drow being slavers, which in, Ben-Zobber and Zan and in Seventh Crown and in a lot of backgrounds, the drow do use a lot of slaves. And if that person came to me and really, really was like, I did not care for fighting slaves. I did not care for fighting against slavers. Slavery is something that really bothers me. I wish it wasn't part of the game that I played. I would feel awfully bad for them, and I wouldn't tell them that their feelings are moot. I wouldn't be like, suck it up. It's just a story, because that's what a lot of people are doing now. It's just fiction. It's just a game. Well, if it's just fiction and just a game, bend. Make your players happy. And if your player's not happy because your drow are a bunch of slavers, then maybe you look at them and go, hey, why don't you sit a game session out or two, and come back in 2 or 3 sessions, and we'll be past the drow stuff, and from here on out I will remember that you are against this stuff in the game. This also comes back to the role-playing consent form that I talked back in, I don't remember the episode, that Green Ronin did, is that knowing what is the stuff that makes people crazy, or that's going to hurt their feelings, or make them uncomfortable, or any of the above, anything that's going to add to a negative experience at your table, that's what those consent forms are about. It's not about, I want to be able to talk about stuff and you're going to whine and cry if I do. That's not what it's about. What it's about is to know what your players are okay with and what's going to make for the best experience for everyone at the table. That's all it is. And honestly, that's all these rules and Tasha's are for too. Because, I know for a fact that my group of people, my local gamers, none of them care about whether or not all orcs are evil. They don't care whether or not it's a Tolkien-esque view of all orcs are evil, or all mind flayers want to eat your brains. They don't care, because they've grown up with that. They're not viewing it as some kind of malice towards a real human species, or anything like that. Now, if I brought in a new player, and that new player was like, man, I don't like how you've portrayed your orcs. They're way too close to one of the First Nations in U.S. and Canada. They're one of the closest to the native peoples. And if that's the case, then maybe I'll talk to them and be like, all right, I will make sure that that's not something that really gets flaunted around at you. And should we get into that in the game, maybe it's time for me to have a section that is updated a little more friendly for you, because you're my player and I want you welcome at my table. I want you to sit and play and have a good time. So I guess that's sort of where I'm at. Is there is a part of me that wants to look at some people who are screaming to high heaven about how WotC is just this racist, horrible, awful company because they made orcs savage. I want to look at them and go, guys, for the last 50 years, or however long Lord of the Rings was the thing, orcs were evil. They were literally created. The Uruk-hai were creations of evil. And I think that's the thing, is a lot of it is delivery, and a lot of it is intent. Which I know that's not a popular statement, is that if I don't intend my guys to be these horrible racists, but you view them that way, then it's not on me. I wrote these guys just to be a militarized force. You're the one that is seeing what was, I created this lineup. You're the one that's seeing this in there. Now, I'm not going to say that your feelings are invalid, that if you see the Nazis in the orc regime, that's wrong and you should shut up, because you're seeing it. It means that it even subconsciously it might be there, and maybe I need to make some adjustments. But it also means that maybe as a discerning player, we need to realize at the end of the day that sometimes a story is just a story. That I made this monster to be a monster, and that's it. It's not because I want some deeper socio-political opinion on it or anything of the sort. It's because I thought it'd be cool to have a lizard with two heads, or whatever we're talking about. That is one of the things that, again, call me old, that the newer generation does seem to do a lot of, is look for a deeper meaning when sometimes there isn't one. It does not invalidate their feelings if that deeper meaning that they have created is one that hurts their feelings. It doesn't make their feelings any less valid. It just means that we've got to try and find a way to explain to them why this is the case or why this isn't the case, or where there may have been a miscommunication, or frankly just look at them and go, hey, we won't do it again. I'm very sorry that it hurt your feelings. Never my intent. Let's move forward. And that's, I think, when it comes to the racial stuff in Tasha's, I won't be using it just because one of the things that always bothered me about Pathfinder is the fact that all of the player character races were all positives, no negatives. There was no drawback to being anybody. And in a fantasy setting where you do have monolithic race creations, it's kind of annoying that everybody is perfect, and that's not okay either. That's sending the wrong message too. So that's kind of where I'm at with the racial thing. Is I just use the stats. Don't make a big racial deal out of it. As the rest of you players, obviously don't use slurs or anything. Be like, oh, your guy, he's like one of those. Yeah, don't be like that. That's a good way of getting kicked out of my table. But there is nothing wrong with having drawbacks based off of your physiological makeup. Neanderthal man was, as I itch my arm like an ape, Neanderthal man was stronger. Simply, they had a hardier frame. They were stronger than we are now, unless we change ourselves using, working out and stuff. And that's kind of, I think, where my brain goes when someone's like, well, not all orcs are strong based off of the human percentage. If they're 7.5 foot tall, their muscle fibers are built differently, and maybe they've got a stronger bone structure, like a Cro-Magnon man or something like that, then yeah, they are. Yeah, there's always going to be a corner case, but when you're talking about the generic overall, yes, a 7.5 foot tall, higher muscle density, higher bone density creature, not human, creature, is going to be physically stronger than the average 5.5 foot tall, fatty tissue, omnivore, hunter-gatherer human. Again, I understand the politics behind it. I understand the social ramifications of it. When you start describing them in a negative fashion, you start basically pointing out, oh, and they're also stupid, and they're only good for physical labor, and that's a different story. But when you're just specifically talking about whether or not something is physically built stronger than the other version, I don't see where that's a problem. I don't see where that's a racist view, or bigoted against humans or orcs or anything like that. It's just, that's how they are described. That is how they are physically built. That's how they are in this genre, in this game. It's all about delivery, and I think that's where a big thing is. Now, the other part of Tasha's lineage thing, where it allows you to basically kind of create your own background, create your own class, so your class isn't at least this is what it was reading, that your class isn't necessarily, your powers aren't necessarily tied to your class, that you're going to be able to shift things around. Again, I could be wrong there. When the book comes out, people will let me know, but that is something that I would want nowhere near my table. I despise. It makes me so crazy when people find a way to loophole in everything that they want and have minimized all of their drawbacks, and that's what it sounds like this is going to turn into. I'm sure it was designed with the idea of, we're going to make the most narrative version rather than trying to hem people in. You are a folk hero. You are this. You are that. Rather than trying to hem people into stereotypes, because that's what they were trying to avoid. They were trying to avoid that. But in turn, what they've done is basically been like, okay, describe everything that you want, and now you get it. That, no way. Not at my table. Not with my characters. I am not that much of a Santa Claus DM to let people just make the character with all the bonuses that they want and with all of the background information that they want, no matter where they come from or what they are. Social and politics aside, that does not make for a fun game. It just doesn't. When everybody's Superman, what do? So that is my take on Tasha's. I think it's gonna be a cool book. There'll be a lot of really cool stuff in it. It's really neat that they're reprinting stuff that people might not have gotten if they didn't want to get into that kind of other world. Definitely very happy that it doesn't step on any of my subclasses from the my DM's Guild supplement for later this year. But yeah, so I think that pretty much covers it. I look forward to getting Tasha's. I may not get it immediately. At some point I'll pick it up, or it'll, maybe it'll get gifted to me or something like that. But whatever the case may be, is as long as everybody's having a good time and nobody's feelings are getting hurt and everybody's generally pleasant to one another, you're doing the right thing. Tasha's, Cauldron, Bigby's Glove Store, and Elminster's Haberdashery aside, if everybody's having a good time, you're playing you're role playing the right way, because that's really all that matters, is that everybody's having a good time and you're forgetting some of the nasty stress awfulness of this world. So with that, do me a favor, go out there this weekend, stay safe, maybe have some people over, but everybody mask up. Keep apart, don't lick doorknobs, whatever. Get out there, have a good time, and play some games, because I'm gonna. See you next week.